All right, I'd now like to invite to the stage Sepo Hachigonta. He's going to talk about climate-smart agriculture.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Sepo Hachigonta, as introduced. I'm from FANRPAN. We're based in Pretoria, South Africa, and we are represented in 17 countries within Southern Africa. I'm going to share with you on some of the work that we're doing. Is mostly with regards to policy engagements within the region, that is Southern Africa. For a start, I just want you to pause for a bit. I'm showing you just these statistics. 22,000 children die every day due to poverty. In short, by the time I finish making this presentation, we are talking about about 100 people dying because of poverty. This seems very far-fetched, but if you come down to reality, this is what's happening in the world. We've spoken of these challenges that we have, the loss of environmental challenges, and on top of that, we are talking of climate change. How do we come up with policies that are able to address this? The good news is it's not always that we can solve these problems. We can talk of policies, we can talk of policy making, and I'm just showing here the wagon of policy making. It's not just about the government. If you can be able to come up with policies that are implementable, policies that can be able to tackle the set goals, as well as work as a team, sort of just looking at policymakers, but as well as push the policymakers to come up with policies that can be tangible, policies that can be implementable, policies that can make a difference. At FANRPAN, as I said earlier on, we are engaged in policy-making processes. Our core business is to develop the evidence, as well as to get that evidence to policymakers so they can make a difference. We use a number of strategies, and one of them is policy analysis. Why policy analysis? We know that there are lots of burning challenges when you talk of policies in Africa and around the world. However, we need to analyze policies that have worked before and generate the evidence in terms of what works now and how do we feed it into the policy processes. One of the key areas of our organization is partnership. We use partnerships both at a national level, regional level, and a global level in order to influence policies within the region as well as at a national level. So key to our success is the whole mash of networks that I won't go into details of. The next phase is capacity development. We develop capacity both at a national level where we inform or we train the policymakers on how well they can uptake the messages coming from the researchers. At the ground level, we capacitate the researchers on how to communicate the policies to communicate the messages that they're generating to policymakers. Another phase of our work is on capacity development in terms of generating evidence that works on the ground. We do our modeling, yes, but how do we get that model, those equations to make a difference on the ground? We do a lot of capacity development in terms of student training, as well as training the journalists. We need to train our journalists. Without them giving them the right messages, journalists can break or make the policies to happen. So we invest a lot in training the journalists, both on climate change and other sectors that talk to food security within the region. Another component is policy advocacy. This is the core of what we do. How do we advocate for policies that have shown that they work? And how do we get the evidence from the researchers to the policymakers? One key event that we do is having regional dialogues. We believe in sitting together with the people we work with the national governments, with other stakeholders, to discuss how best to come up with solutions is key. They might be your enemies, but we believe with dialogue, we can always come up with solutions. And that's one of the core areas that we are good at dialoguing. Every year we have a national dialogue or a regional dialogue that brings around stakeholders from research to media. In Africa, it's not always about gloom or doom. There are very good success stories in Africa, and we try to promote those success stories. Here I'm just showing you a picture of the Queen Mother of Swaziland, who's done a lot of work on the ground in terms of promoting the youth, as well as just promoting climate-smart agriculture initiatives, as well as having face-to-face meetings with our leaders. We know they are policymakers, but they're not very far. We create platforms where we meet them, discuss issues that affect their countries. What are the challenges that they're having, as well as give them challenges. What are you able to achieve within a certain period of time? And we keep on going, knocking on their door. Have you achieved what you said you were supposed to achieve? A big component of it is knowledge management. We believe knowledge lies in the people. People have got the knowledge and they are the custodians of the knowledge, as well as documenting the processes that we use to generate that knowledge. So knowledge processes are very key, as well as looking at the other end of technologies. How do we get technologies that are working somewhere else and transfer them in other regions? Communication. Sometimes birds communicate better than us. How do we learn to communicate better as humans? Similar to the climate change discussions. We use various ways of communications, one of them being theater. We train communities to do theater for policy advocacy. And we use a lot of social media. Social media is big now. We use those platforms to communicate. If you look at Twitter, Twitter alone, almost 250 million tweets are sent every day. That's a lot. How do you take advantage of such platforms to communicate your messages? We use big platforms like these ones, the UNFCCC platforms, to communicate our messages, as well as to meet with policymakers on how we can start engaging at a global level on these issues, as well as take these messages back home to our respective countries. The last point is mostly, I'm trying to talk of policy making. Policy making, as you might know, evidence generation is just but many components that talk to that. When you talk of policy making, there are a lot of sectors. We're talking of personal judgment. We're talking of resources that are needed. However, despite all these complications in policy making, we can make a difference and we can definitely help somebody out there. We are not supposed to be dying because of hunger. We've reached a very advanced stage as humanity. I think hunger should be packed by now, and we should be thinking we should have what we call an iPad generation, where everybody is happy and everybody is full. Thank you.
My question is, how important is the citizen across African countries where civil society is very weak? So for example, this room is full of Polish students. How much is the views of Africa's young people going to influence policy decisions on climate?
That's a big one, and that's one of the challenges that we are facing, where we are discussing all these environmental challenges, but if you look at, you go back to Africa, not so many kids are aware of the challenges that they are being faced in terms of environmental challenges. However, there's a big stake, I think, that's happening now if you look at most governments, or where they are trying to promote the capacity development of, or developing curriculums on climate change or environmental issues within their national agendas, like at primary school level or secondary school level. For me, I believe those are the things that need to be encouraged. We need to be capacitated, we need to be aware of what's happening to our environment, and we need to promote the young generation, because they're the ones who are going to take these matters up there. Thanks.